See you here today, and we are going to be talking about some new career change models as well as how people can balance all of the factors that go into making a career change, right? They want to make a career change, they want to be happier, they want more meaning, but sometimes that brings along some challenges. So, we're going to talk about that today and how do we help them manage that transition and talk about their career change in a way that might minimize some of the negatives that come along with a career change, because of course everything has its trade-offs and its challenges. So we will be talking about that today. If you're joining me, please drop hello in the chat, whether you're watching this live or watching the replay, and I'd love to say hello to you and know where you are joining us from. So, career change, it is all around us right now. People are wanting more meaning or they're getting laid off and wondering what's next. I just talked to a prospective client the other day who called and said, I just got laid off. I've been 30 years selling in a specific industry and I don't want to do that anymore. What do I do next? And as we started talking through the options, everybody wants to have this kind of general, well, can I just see what's going to come kind of approach. And he was in sales, so I shot it to him straight. How would it work if you went to sell something and didn't think about who the audience was? How would that go? Not very well, right? You can't go and try to promote a product. And I know people don't love this analogy, but we can't go and try to promote you and your background and your history to a generic general audience. And he said, well, what if I had a more general audience, a more general resume that just focused on sales? Well, that would be great. It'd make you a mediocre candidate for selling what you used to sell and a mediocre candidate for selling anything else, right? If we keep your resume focused on sales and in the industry that you've been in, now you're a standout candidate for where you've been, not going to fit so great to where you want to go. So we've got to do some work. We've got to get that focus honed in. And this is our reality because, yes, there are a lot of positions open, but there are also more applications for every open position than ever before. And especially positions that are desirable are going to have a lot of applications coming in. Our clients need to be the best candidate for that role. And the only way they can do that is to be focused on what role are they targeting and what industry are they going to work in, because that will make them feel like a fit right away. So one of the visuals that I've been using for a really long time, that I will share with you here. Let me pull this up to the right slide before I get it in front of you here, because otherwise it will be a mess. So this visual, I'm just realizing is not going to work unless I do this. Okay, sorry. Thank you for hanging with me. So I've been using this visual for a while and it's rudimentary, but what it does share for people is that your fastest job search is in the industry and the role that you have been in already. That's your fastest search. If you're worried about money and not being out of work for very long, this might be where you want to start. And actually, this is what I discussed with this person. Let's start a job search in the industry, in the job that you've already been in. And then while you're searching for that job, you can do the research to figure out what other industry might you want to be in, or what role might you want to play in the industry that you've been in instead of sales. And I recommend that people change one or the other. If you're going to change both, it's going to usually require either a lot of time, going back to school, or something to change industry and role. So let's say salesperson in construction, right? If you want to stay in sales, you could change industries. That's going to be a shorter search than trying to change both. Or you could stay in construction and change positions, maybe moving into project management or something else in that construction field. When you try to get out of both at the same time, it ends up causing a lot of time and it's going to make it harder to make that transition. So this is kind of the balance that people are making. When you make a career change, you're going to maybe miss out on some salary or some time out of work, time being unemployed, the more you try to make a change. And if we help people understand that, maybe they can make a stair-step change, or maybe they don't really need to change both to be happy. we're really figuring out what do they need and what is making them unhappy, and how might a transition kind of serve all of those goals, right? Make them happier, not take a whole bunch of time and money or salary change, and get them through where they want to get through, because it doesn't have to be, throw everything out and start over. What can they do? Change industry or change role, but not changing both at the same time. And after we had that conversation, he said, "Yep, I'll get the sales in my same industry, get that going, and then do the research. What might a new role look like in the same industry, or what might a sales job look like in a different industry that I'm interested in?" Doesn't have to be this huge change a lot of times to make people happier. Thought this was interesting as we're talking about people making career changes and people getting laid off, that there is that kind of out of work time that we want to consider. Many people aren't, especially with inflation and all of that, they don't have the financial cushion to stay unemployed for a long time, right? We've got to figure out how to make that transition faster. And so I just wanted to show you a few of the other models that we use. This first one is from our career transition coach program, and really helping people think through their what drives them, their values, that's the yellow part here. Their where is the I, what industries, what types of companies will they thrive in, the skills that they want to use, what type of work do they want to do, this factors into those roles. And then the E is what experience do they already have and how can they move this forward. And I developed this model way back, it feels like the way back now, in 2015, because what I saw was people were coming into my office wanting to make a transition, but they didn't want to start over. They wanted to use that experience that they already had and build on it. And many of the traditional career change models that I saw and that I'd learned in my master's program didn't include how do you factor that in. And many of the assessments can't factor that in, right? You take an interest assessment. Maybe it does a little bit, but those interest assessments often come out with suggestions that don't match up with people's experience at all. And so I wanted to put that in as part of my model to very, specifically and consciously call that out, that we wanted to build on that experience. And of course, we can still do those assessments, but that they're going to build on and we're going to match them up to what experience do you already have and how can we translate that. So I think about this model and how we can help people figure out these different areas and then put the pieces together. And no matter what model you're using, it's really important that I see people need insights in more than one area. So if you're using a disc and that really helps people with maybe their values and a little bit of their skills, how can you partner that with some other types of techniques? Even questioning doesn't have to be an assessment, that makes sure it gets at some of the other areas. Similarly, the Myers-Briggs or the Strong typically get at one, maybe two of these areas. And we've got to make sure our coaching program comes along and either uses assessments or questions to get at the other areas, so that people really have an aligned opportunity to look at all of their interests and the drivers, what's really motivating their change, and put that back together then when they're making their decision. And so when we're thinking about that, the different pieces that people can pull together, it's really a fun process. Our career change class gives you tools that you can use to look at all of those pieces. They're not an assessment, they're tools that you can use over and over again with any client. And I love watching people leave that class with really a program ready to go to help people make career decisions, to do the exploration in a very practical, kind of hands-on, feet on the ground way, and then make that transition into something that's going to be a better fit for them. Usually transitioning industry or role, not both at the same time. So if you're joining me, feel free to say hello. I'd love to see who's listening in. And if you've seen some of this with your clients, that they want to make this transition, and how do they make that balance so that they're not forfeiting, feeling like they have to start over, but also getting the mental health and meaning that they're looking for when they're making this change. And it is still Mental Health Awareness Week, a month, I think. And so we always want to be conscious of that there's a mental health cost to staying where they are. There's also a mental health cost to um, ill set expectations around job search and career change that then it takes a long time and it's not easy. So, how can we help people find that middle ground of getting what they're looking for, but not embarking on a journey that may actually be more challenging than they think it's going to be, right? And making a huge career change sometimes is harder than people think it's going to be, and it's sometimes not necessary to achieve the goals that they're wanting to achieve. Hi, Andrea. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. Um, Good to say hi. Thank you. So, as we're looking to do that and make that transition, I also heard somebody talking about career change models. We used to call it a ladder. I feel like that's ancient now. Nobody's had a ladder for years. But I heard somebody talking about it as a spiral. And they were talking about it as a spiral because you're moving out of a company perhaps and then back to make that salary gain. A lot of times people are talking about having to move out of company to get that salary bump. And I'm not sure the spiral, I love that model, right? It's not a whole bunch of positive feelings around a spiral. And so I just wanted to throw a couple of models up there that Michelle Carroll and I have been talking about in our classes. We're teaching this career transition class. So a few of them that have been around a while, but I like the visuals. You've got your jungle gym where the person's kind of choosing the next place to go. And then you've also got the climbing wall. That was one that Michelle brought in, that the climbing wall analogy. You're picking the next place to go. Hopefully this woman doesn't have any kind of harness, right? But hopefully you've got some kind of harness support system to catch you if you do make a misstep, which happens in our careers, right? We get a job where it's not a good fit, whatever that might look like. And so those were some other models that I like. And then just thinking about some other models that we've been throwing around for a while, and in the career space, from position to project. So instead of worrying about a specific role, it's really the next project you're taking on. From a path to a pattern. So we might not have this nice, pretty path, but our career decisions have some kind of pattern to them so that one after the next makes some kind of sense. And that helps us move a little bit further from this idea of predictability or stability to possibilities and what might be possible when we open up and have a different view of all of the different places that we might be able to go with our skills. And then from employee to entrepreneur, not meaning that you have to be an entrepreneur, but that you take that more entrepreneurial mindset in your career, being aware of what the next opportunities are going to look like, what your risks are in your current role, and being a little bit more thinking forward of what do I need around me in terms of skills and network and everything else to be successful in the next step in my career and in getting that next project moving forward in the pattern, whatever that might look like. So those are some models that we've been throwing around. Love to hear if there's any other models. The river is another one that I've heard people talking about, but some other visuals that we can throw out there for clients to replace that idea of the ladder. And a spiral is one of them. Probably wouldn't be one that I'd use, but maybe you will find that helpful for your clients. So again, our career transition coach class starts on October 24th. Michelle Carroll and I teach that program together. We love, gathering this group of students, and they share with each other. They come from all different walks of career work. So universities, workforce centers, private practice, coming together. Oh, and a lot of community college career services folks there as well, coming together and sharing their ideas and then walking away with a created process to do career exploration and decision making, and then start the transition with their clients. So if you have questions about that, let me know. Starts on Monday, the October 24th. I'm very excited. Next week, we're going to be announcing our 2023 trends, the topics that we'll be covering at the Career Jam coming up in November. So you won't want to miss it next week. Put it on your calendar. I'd love to see many of you back as we reveal our 2023 trends. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.